It's always good to catch up with our country cousins here at Club and Angle, and my next guest has some outstanding stories to tell. No doubt you'll enjoy them. The gentleman in question is John Downey. Well, John, good to catch up with you. No luck with Just Roll Your Own. He's finished 8th, but only beaten 11.5 metres in the winter gift behind Jillaby Fabio, but the run will certainly make him a better horse next time around.
Yeah, no, he went all right. I'm happy with him. It's a long way to come down, like 3.5 hours, and I stay overnight, so it's not going to knock him around much, but I'll be back.
John, I get the feeling that as long as you were at a race meeting, you'd be happy.
Oh, look, this is unreal. Like, to come here from when I was here years ago, when I was only about 17, 18, well, the difference is unbelievable. I didn't think I'd ever see something like this, you know, and the track, it's unreal, you know.
John, you've got an interesting story to tell. You now 75 years of age. You've had 127 winners, so throughout your career you've only been a hobby trainer.
Yeah, oh, well, there'd be probably more than that because they don't go right back to when I first started, like with the winners. And yeah, it's I've always sort of just stuck with a few. I've sort of had a lot of luck with horses that other people can't get going, and made them into something special. And I learnt all that through Bob, because Bob used to be real good with horses that no one could do any good with, you know. He had horses like Chemney and Havilah. They were real buggers of horses, but he sorted them out, you know. But I think Chemney won the inner city pace, you know. But I learnt a lot off him, and that's the right place to come down here because they're professionals, you know.
You're speaking about Bob Allen. We're going to talk about him a little bit further down the track, but we'll put all the pieces of the puzzle together before then. Born and bred in Grenfell on a farm.
Yeah, out the Cow Road from Grenfell, about 10 mile. And yeah, we used to have, there was 5 of us, me and my brother and 3 sisters. We used to have to walk 3 kilometres to catch the school bus. And then when we got home, we all had our chores to do, and we had, where we lived, we had no power. It was just lights and you know, no running water, tank water. And anyway, a lot of them used to say, oh, what'd you do? And I said, well, by the time you'd done all your chores, you were that tired you wanted to go to bed by 8 o'clock. And anyway, we all always went to bed in a warm bed and had plenty to eat, so that was the main thing.
So you're raised on a farm, no tractor, no car to speak of, but you had an interesting way to get to a town with Mum.
Oh yeah, I used to look forward to it. Like, well, where we live, you couldn't get a babysitter, so she had to take me with her. And I'd sit on her lap and hang on to the reins, and the old horse would trot along, and that's sort of where I kicked off. And that horse, he was unbelievable. Like, I used to, in the yard, he'd come up, and I'd climb up on the rails, and he'd come right over and let me get on his back. And he'd take me for a bit of a walk around the paddock, and when he had enough, he'd go back to the rail and let me get off. And you don't get too many like that.
So, Joe, we're talking about horsepower of another means, the old horse and buggy.
Oh, yeah, it's, yeah, well, the horse and buggy, like, that's the only way Mum had a way of getting around. And when you think back, like, she lived till she was 85, and like, we done it pretty tough. And anyway, the railway hotel at Grenfell had stables out the back, and we used to put the horse in there, and then the shopping centre was probably about 300 yards away, and Mum, I remember she'd have me in one hand and a big heap of groceries in the other, lugging them back to the sulky. We used to put the horse in one of the stables and give him something to eat till we were ready to come home. But, you know, I'd do it all again. Yes, I would.
So now as a 10-year-old, you're helping Dad plough the fields, wheat and oats in particular, with an 8-team Clydesdale horses.
Yeah, well, with a 10-disc plough, you usually have to have 10 horses, but the 8 that we had, they were big, strong horses, you know, and they used to handle it pretty well. And I used to look forward to coming home, and Dad had, like, if it looked like it was going to rain and you sort of was in a bit of a hurry to get the crop done and in the ground, and he'd come home and have something to eat, and I'd go up and take over, and I'd sit there driving 8, and they were unreal, you know, they were powerful things. And when we were finished and taking the gear off them, I was only a little fella at the time, and I used to have to stand on a 44-gallon drum to reach up and pull the winkers off them. And, yeah, you know, it was unbelievable, like, to see them to do things that they used to do. We used to do everything with them, you know, the horses. It was horse, breakfast, dinner and tea.
So, John, how did you go from driving an 8-horse Clydesdale team to get involved in harness racing?
Oh, well, I had my mother's sister, that was Neville Condren's mother. Anyway, I started off with him, and I used to walk up from school. When we moved to town when I was about 12-year-old. We sold the farm, and then I couldn't believe what it was to switch a light on and off. Anyway, Neville had trotters. He used to be a shearer, and I'd go up and help him do the yards, and I'd have them harnessed up for when we wanted to fast work them, because the showground was right near his place. And that's where I started off from there, you know. And Neville was a good horseman, you know, and like some of the horses that we had that went through his hands and that, like they were 3 and 4 year old before we broke them in. And when you think back, it's a wonder I'm still here, like, you know. And Neville used to like to ride them, break them into the saddle too. And we had one horse there. He threw Neville 5 times, and Neville said, "Look, mate, don't let him beat us, you have a go." Anyway, I stayed on him. He threw me 3 times, and then I think he was getting a bit tired, so I lasted, and he never bucked again after that. But that's what you had to do, you know.
So as an 18-year-old, you then got involved with Bob Allen?
Yeah, Bob was unreal. To go down there and just see the change in the way things were, and to go to Harold Park every Friday night, and I seen some of the best drivers and some of the best horses. It was unbelievable. You know, I used to just look forward to it. Like I said, I was only getting $20 a week in me keep, but you know, one night a bloke, he had a good win. I said to him, "This horse will win," you know, and he was 100 to 1. Anyway, he had a few bob on him, and he slung me 300, you know, and that was unbelievable back them days. And like, he had good owners, like always getting slings. So the $20 didn't worry me. I was making up for it other ways.
So you decided to get involved in harness racing a little bit more. You bought a horse for just $100.
Yeah, they used to have, at Homebush, they used to have, and they sold his mother separate to him, and he was only a big lump of a foal. And I bought him for $100, and actually I had to borrow half of that off Mum to buy him. And anyway, we got him home on the train, and used to drop him off at the railway station at Grenfell. Used to be a train come through there. Anyway, I went down and I had a headstall and I led him home. I broke him in and got him going, and then we used to do a bit of work for a bloke. He had about 5,000 acres of ground. My father was a contract fencer. Anyway, I was out helping him one day, and I said, "Would it be all right if I turn a horse out here? I just want to let him grow out, like give him 12 months." He said, "No worries." Anyway, God, he grew into a nice horse. So I got him going. I won 7 races with him in the bush, and that's when Dad said, "You should go down and learn a bit off these fellas in Sydney." And Bob said, "Well, you can have your horse, $20 a week you keep and your horse here for nothing." Anyway, I won a heat here, and then I come out the following week and won the final. And Eddie Sims had Americans here, and they were looking for horses to buy. Anyway, I was unharnessing him, and he come up and he said, "Would you be interested in selling him?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not sure, you know, he's my first horse." And I said, "I'll ask Bob what he thinks." And Bob said, "Look, if I was you, I'd take it because he could be dead tomorrow." Anyway, I took it, and that's what set me up. And it was to tell you a funny story. I used to, when I was getting the $20 a week, I used to go to the Commonwealth Bank at Riverston, and I'd bank 10 and keep 10. And this bank manager used to see me come every Monday morning and say, "Here he comes with his $10. And I said, "No, it's a bit more this week." And I threw a bank cheque in front of him for $35,000, and he looked. But no, that horse set me up, you know. It set me right up. And I went back home. Bob gave me 3 horses to take back, and he said, "You'll do all right with these horses. They're not quite good enough for here." A bloke called Frank Corbett owned them. He used to call all his horses Fengory something. There was one of them called Fengory Command. I won 4 straight with him. And then like they were problem horses, but I sorted them out. But the competition up there weren't as bad as here. And I think what made him something special, like back them days you could start him twice on the one day, in the first and the last, and he'd always come out and go better in the last. Yeah, and it's and like to mention the drivers I seen and that, I used to always sit there and watch Kevin Newman and Vicky Frost. I reckon they stood out, They were good blokes and good horsemen. And I think today there's not too many of us left, the horseman side of things. There's a lot of good drivers going, but horsemanship, like, it's something on its own. And anyway, I used to go to Harold, like I said, I look forward to going to Harold Park every Friday night, and probably the best horse I seen, in my opinion, and the fastest horse was Hal Wes. He was never sound, he had bad quarter cracks, and Kevin Newman used to drive him. He was from Tasmania, and he'd have definitely won Inter Dominion, only he had to be scratched out of the final. First Lee won it that year in New Zealand. And he was, just to watch him go, it was unreal. Not only him, like, there was some top ones, like I couldn't mention them all, but I tell you what, they give me some good memories of like watching them every week.
You've also got wonderful memories of the Henry Lawson Festival. What's all that about?
Yeah, well, we went. There used to be a place called Bald Hills at Grenfell, and there was a lot of wild goats up there. Anyway, me and my brother used to go there catching rabbits and that, and anyway, I said we ought to catch a couple of these goats and I'll break them into the cart and put them in the Henry Lawson Festival. He said, "You're mad." Anyway, I'll tell you what, I had some skin off me while I was trying to catch them, but I tell you, I mouthed them up just like a horse. I had one in the cart and one on an outrigger, if you know what that means. And anyway, I drove them up. We went and caught a heap of rabbits, and I hung the rabbits around the cart, and I drove it up the main street in the festival, and I had John Downey, rabbit trapping contractor from Grenfell, and I won first prize. And they were good to me, them goats, because I used to drive them around the town, and sometimes you'd get travellers going through and they'd pull up, because they've never seen anything like that, and they'd say, "Oh, can we take a photo of your goat?" And I used to say, "Oh, I don't think they'd stand it long enough." And they'd say, "Oh, we'll give you $5. And I'd say, "Oh, I think I can get them to stand."
John, I've left this question to last because I know it brings back so many wonderful memories for you. And you've got so many wonderful memories to talk about. But your first city drive, you've left the country lifestyle to come into the city to drive, was at Penrith.
Yeah.
And you've got so many fond memories of that for 3 different reasons.
Oh, look, it was unbelievable. I tell you what, I was being brought up in the bush, and the way I was brought up, like, we were pretty rough, and nothing worried me. And I tell you, I was very nervous that night. It was Ursus first, the horse I sold. And I went into the driver's room to get change, and I just opened the door and looked, and they were all sitting around. And I thought, and after the race, I won the race, but I said to Bob on the way home, I said, "Look, Bob, even if I had to run last," I said, "just going into that driver's room and being around all them blokes that I used to idolise when I was little, reading a trot guide," I said, "I was there." And that was one of the best things for me,
You beat Paul Fitzpatrick, but it was a stand-start race, and Percy Hall had a few words of wisdom for you.
Yeah, actually, with a stand and start, they used to parade a bit while they pulled the tapes around, and he'd never heard of me or seen me before, and he said, "Hey, mate, you had much experience driving horses?" I said, "Yeah, I used to drive 8 at once." Anyway, he looked at me as if I was having a go at him, but I was telling the truth.
That's not about a couple of people in the race, Paul Fitzpatrick and the great Percy Hall.
Hey, there wasn't only the Laurie Moles, and actually the night I sold the horse, I beat Laurie Moles, and he was driving a horse called By and By. Yeah, and I come from the outside of the front. It was a stand and start, and he led By and By, and Bob said he used to always tipped me off, you know. He said, look, if Joe Isley, Vicky Frost or Laurie Moles is in front, don't attack them because you'll only bring yourself undone. Anyway, I just sat there, and it was over 12 and a half furlongs. That's 3 laps and a bit. Anyway, my little fella outstayed him. I won by about a neck. And I got a big trophy, and it was $1,000, you know, back then. And that, like, just the trophy alone was a big canteen of country. And to walk away with something like that, it was unbelievable, you know. Like, to just come down, and that's what really made me coming down and working with Bob, like the experience I learned and the things I seen, you know. We went all over every track, you know. We used to go to, Gosford used to race them days, Maitland, Newcastle, Wyong, you know, and that inner city pay was a good race every year. Bob won it with Chemney, and then they used to have a race that he won a few times with horses called the Scots Whisky Cream Cup at Gosford. And, you know, I would never have seen all them sort of things if I hadn't have come down here. And to come, like, in the bush, you go to somewhere you might only pass one car, but going into the city, like, it was unbelievable. And, like, sometimes if there was some of the owners wanted to come in the truck, I used to get in the back with the horses, and I didn't mind, you know, like, but it was great, you know, really great. And I'd like to do it all again, so I would. But anyway, I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now. But I'm still going. You know, I shod my first horse when I was 12-year-old. Dad was a pretty good blacksmith. He used to make his own shoes, and he got its feet all ready for me. And he said, "Hey, it's about time you started learning to tack them on yourself." And I just went from there. And I still do my own shoeing. You know, it might take me a bit longer, but I get there.
John, it's been great to catch up with you. Thanks for sharing so many wonderful memories with us. It's been very enjoyable.
Yeah, anyway, like I said to you, I'll bring a photo of the goats down and show you next time I come down.
Good to catch up with you, John.
Another thing, I'll tell you what, I've drove some a bit